In recent years, our society has shifted in how it treats homelessness. What was once seen as a condition to be met with care is now more and more treated as a crime. In June of 2024, the Supreme Court ruled in the city of Grants Pass versus Johnson that cities may begin to ban sleeping or camping in public spaces, even if there are no shelter beds available. And overnight, what had been called cruel and unusual punishment became constitutionally permitted. And cities are responding, clearing encampments, writing tickets, making arrests, punishing people simply for the act of resting outdoors. At the same time, rhetoric has grown harsher. Only last week on a popular national news program, we even heard a call, which was later walked back, that unhoused people with mental illness should be executed. Words like that don't just shock. They give color to violence, fear, and exclusion. All of this raises urgent questions for us as people of faith. How do we respond when law and culture choose force over compassion? What does it mean to follow Jesus, the community organizer, in a time when the most vulnerable are being pushed further and further to the margins? It is into this moment that we turn to today's word, for the ones we don't see. Let me tell you what I've been thinking about lately. I've been thinking about how fragile life is when you're living outside. How every single thing we take for granted, warmth, sleep, safety, privacy, becomes a daily negotiation. How surviving the streets doesn't just wear down the body, it wears down the soul. How it must make you tired in ways that sleep can't fix. How it must make you ache in ways that Tylenol can't touch. How it makes you feel invisible, like you don't count. Because when the whole world walks past you and doesn't look you in the eye, after a while you stop looking in the mirror too. It strips you of dignity in ways no shower or sandwich could ever fully restore. There can be no soft landing when you're sleeping under a bridge, no backup plan when your whole life fits in a backpack, no clean line between doing okay and barely hanging on, no margin for a bad day, no cushion for grief, no space to fall apart because falling apart could get you arrested or worse. And people say, why don't they just get clean, get sober, get a job? But how do they do any of that when there's nowhere to lay your head, nowhere to catch your breath, nowhere to wash your clothes, to see a doctor, to take your meds, to talk to someone, or just feel safe for 5 minutes? Get a job? As if it were that easy. And so people hang on, barely, day after day until they can't anymore. And when someone dies out there, not from violence or overdose, but from the long, slow wear of poverty and neglect, there's usually no obituary. No funeral, no GoFundMe, no family gathered around a graveside, no crowd of mourners, no Facebook post, no line of people sharing memories or stories or tears, no one lining up to speak their names. But I remember them. Martin, Popeye, Tiger, Sean, John, Don. We knew them. They were here. They were a part of this church, this town, this table. We broke bread together. We heard their jokes, their rants, their brilliance. They were complicated and kind, frustrating and funny, creative and chaotic, sometimes sober, sometimes not, sometimes angry, sometimes tender. They were poets and musicians, artists and mechanics, chefs. They weren't statistics. They weren't problems to be solved. They were people, neighbors, children of God. And they died not because of their choices, but because of a system that made choices for them. A system that chooses to neglect, to abandon, to discard. Because we live in a world that protects wealth more than people. Where housing is an investment instead of a human right. Where poverty is punished and trauma is criminalized. Where mental illness gets jail time instead of care. Where health care is for the insured and mercy is reserved for the respectable. And far too often, even the church, not just out there, but here too, has offered charity when the Spirit is crying out for justice. Isaiah says, "Isn't this not the fast I choose, to loose the bonds of injustice, to let the oppressed go free, to share your bread with the hungry, to bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see the naked to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin." That's not a spiritual suggestion. That's a divine command. That's the voice of God breaking into our world, breaking into our hearts. And James doesn't mince words either. If you say to the hungry, "Go in peace, keep warm, and eat your fill," but do not give them a warm coat or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, what good is that? What good is that? Faith by itself, if it has no works, if it does not move, if it doesn't feed, if it doesn't fight, is dead. Now hear me clearly. This is not a guilt trip. And there's nothing wrong with charity. This is not a finger pointing at you. Because I've watched you show up. I've watched you give. I've watched you make space and extend welcome. Don's Place, the pantry, share fare, local assistance funds, pastor's discretionary fund, meals delivered, community meals offered, prayers offered, time given. We are a people who care deeply, who act generously. We have done beautiful work together, and it matters more than you know. But even still, I believe that God is calling us lovingly, urgently, to more. Not because we haven't done enough, but because the need is greater than what any one congregation can carry. And because our work isn't finished until no one is left outside. While we serve, we are still burying people. People who should still be alive. People who would still be here if the world looked more like the kingdom. And this isn't just about Martin or Popeye or Tiger or Don or Sean or John. It's about all the ones we don't name, all the ones we don't see, all the people still barely surviving, in tents, in cars, in shelters, in silence. Jesus said, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. Sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. And they said, when? When did we see you like that? And he said, whenever you did it for the least of these, you did it to me. So let me ask you, do you see him? Because he's out there right now, wrapped in a blanket under the bridge, nodding off in the library, hoping he won't get sent out into the rain, standing in the pantry line with a swollen foot, riding on the longest bus route with nowhere to go, just trying to stay warm. He's pacing the parking lot of the C&K, unsure of where to go next, sleeping in the doorway at City Hall while the world walks by. The question is not when we'll see Jesus. The question is whether we'll recognize him. And if we do, what are we willing to do about it? Not out of shame, not out of obligation, but out of love, out of faith, out of a fierce belief that resurrection is real and possible and breaking in among us. Because if resurrection means anything at all, it means that what's broken isn't beyond repair. And that we, by God's grace, get to be part of the rebuilding. So here's the good news. There is still time. Time to rise. Time to listen. Time to reimagine what's possible. Time to tear down the structures that leave people behind and to build communities where everyone has enough. Because resurrection isn't just something we believe in. It's something we practice. It shows up in practical, everyday ways, in shelters that provide more than a warm, dry bed, a hot shower, and a place to wash your clothes, in housing policies that treat people like people, not numbers, in harm reduction work that keeps people alive, in job training programs that give folks a real second chance, in mutual aid and community gardens and shared meals, in every act of justice rooted in mercy, in every time we refuse to look away. Resurrection is belonging. It's safety. It's community. It's dignity. It's a path forward. It's hope. In memory of Martin, of Popeye, of Tiger, of Don, of Sean, of John, and in the name of the one who still walks among us, hungry, cold, and tired, and waiting to be seen. Amen.
Just quickly, trying to think how I was going to introduce this song. I think Bob already did, but just to add, for this song is called When My Eyes Were Opened. And I believe that we are all born with the windows to our soul wide open, which is what the eyes are. And but as we grow up and we get indoctrinated or taught, or we start seeing people as things and judgments and stigmas, and we don't see the soul of this beautiful human being behind all the stigmas that our educations and our religions and our governments teach us to dismiss those people. But when your eyes are opened and you see that these people are a part of you, they're part of my soul. So this is called When My Eyes Were Open. Saw a withered man, cardboard sign at his feet, begging for $1 to buy something to eat. Swore I didn't know him, just like so many others. But had my eyes been open, would have seen my brother. Saw a strung out woman behind the glass at jail, going through withdrawals, no one to post her bail. Swore I didn't know her, and so I dismissed her. But had my eyes been open, I would have seen my sister. Saw a drunken man sitting in the mud, sucking down a bottle and spitting up the blood. Swore I didn't know him, so I didn't bother. But had my eyes been open, would have seen my father. Saw a naked woman running down the street, screaming at the demons that only she could see. Swore I didn't know her, so I ran for cover. But had my eyes been open, would have seen my mother. Saw an angry boy with a future black and blue, heading off to school to take their future too. Swore I didn't know him, as I've so often done. But had my eyes been open, I would have seen my son. Saw a teenage girl in the alleyway, pulling up her jeans and waiting for her pay. Swore I didn't know her, so I passed like running water. But had my eyes been open, would have seen my daughter. was looking in the mirror, but all that I could see was everyone I had ignored staring back at me. And then my eyes were open, at last and finally. And when my eyes were open, I saw my family. So walk into the landscape of concrete and steel. Walk into the shadows and what the light reveals. And if your eyes are open, you will never walk alone. You will see that we are here to walk each other home.